The Lane Community College Board of Education work session will now be called to order. Celia, will you please read roll call?
Yes, Kevin Alltucker.
Here.
Denise Diamond. Here. Austin Foldnaghi.
Here.
Sophie Gibson. Here. Steve Mattel.
Here.
Zach Mulholland.
Here.
Julie Weisman.
Here.
We will be moving on to the land recognition. The land recognition will be read by Peggy Oberstaller.
Good evening. My name is Peggy Oberstaller. I'm faculty in the health department. I'd like to invite us to start this meeting with the acknowledgement that the land on which Lane Community College is built is the traditional land of the Kalapuya people. I ask you to join me in acknowledging Indigenous communities, their elders, both past and present, as well as future generations. We also acknowledge that our institutions were founded upon genocide, erasures, and exclusions of many Indigenous peoples, including those on whose land our institutions are located. Our institutions must acknowledge and make visible the ongoing effects of systemic oppression and intergenerational trauma that affects all of us. This acknowledgement demonstrates a commitment to beginning the process of working to dismantle the ongoing legacies of settler colonialism and begin a process of restorative justice.
Zach, you are muted.
Thank you for giving the land acknowledgement. We'll be moving on to the adoption of the agenda. Do I have a motion to adopt the?
So moved for adoption of agenda.
Thank
Second.
you. And it's seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
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 And all opposed, say nay. Okay, looking like it's passes unanimously. Next up is, and I might be relying on Kevin as my vice chair, if you can help with any vote counts or keeping track of who's next in the speaker line as we get to discussion items. That would be very helpful. Thank you. Apologies,
Sure.
I'm homesick with COVID. Slowly recovering. Next up is the equity lens. So please note that the equity lens has been provided for the board's reference in board docs. Next is responses to information requests. Do we have any questions or comments to the responses to information requests?
Chair, vice chair?
Yeah.
Excellent. First off, thank you so much for the responses by our cabinet and staff. I wanted to emphasize, especially to our student president, as well as students that are watching, in particular to the student health clinic. I really appreciate the answer in regards to how the health clinic provides comprehensive healthcare resources to students, regardless of citizenship status. And quite frankly, I think in this time period, we need to make sure that there's safe spaces for our students, regardless of immigration status and the nationality. Additionally, I asked a question in regards to the possible impacts of deportation efforts and threats or threats of deportation, and what impacts that would have on our HSI goals, which is Hispanic Serving Institution goals. And I was wondering if we have any conceptual idea about that. And if not, I would like to ask the administration to over the next several years, see if there are any negative impacts to our HSI goals with these. I won't say what I'm thinking. Additionally, though, I asked several questions about collective bargaining agreement language and how that could be used in regards to, as well as current policies to protect LGBTQ plus. Reproductive health rights, as well as DEI, and also our Hispanic and immigrant students. And I just want to encourage the administration to, if there is any demand to bargain, MOUs, or potential collective bargaining agreement options, to be open to those ideas of what type of CBA language we can have to protect our students and protect our staff. Last thing I wanted to mention was in regards to the possible elimination of the Department of Education. I'll speak more about this in our discussion piece, but I think it's prudent for our board to create a letter to our congressional delegation to let them, because it would take an act of Congress in order to eliminate the Department of Education, that we see that this would be a significant impact to community colleges and specifically our community college. We've done this before in the past, and I could speak more on this when we get to the discussion piece. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from any other board members? Okay, not seeing any. We'll move on to discussion items. The first item is board policies. President Bulger, will you please introduce this item?
Yes, I'd be happy to. Brett Roulette is going to come to the podium and talk about the board policies. This would be the first read for the board on these policies.
Good evening, Board. President Bulger. You have in your packet this evening our next round of board policies for review. This month, we have 6 policies that we bring to you. They're all financial related policies. So Vice President Caraflat is here if you have any questions that I'm not able to answer, but we did try to provide an explanation for those. There are 4 that have suggested revisions. One in particular is a pretty significant revision, the first one, and that's the one that deals with the contingency fund. So I just wanted to call that to your attention. The college currently has 2 contingency funds. This would propose putting them in the same fund. That's a more common practice amongst institutions and businesses. The way we do it is not a very common practice. Do keep in mind, regardless of whether there's 2 contingency funds or 1, it takes board action, president's recommendation and board action to move any of those funds. So we would not be changing any of your authority over those funds, just consolidating them into one. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Otherwise, I'm sure you've had a moment to look them over.
Chair, Vice Chair.
Kevin, if you could actually keep stack since you're in the room and can maybe handle that a little easier, that'd be appreciated. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, I've got Austin and I see Julie.
Julie can go first since she hasn't had a chance to speak.
Well, it was just a question about the contingency plan. Is this just an accounting move to be able to account for the funds in a single area? I mean, what is the intent other than just it's common practice to have it in one?
That's a great question, Julie. Yes, it's twofold. It's one, it's actually intended to make the administrative burden a little simpler because it does create more complexities when you have to continually track them in 2 separate. They're both similar purposes and still require the similar access. So it's to create some efficiencies for staffing and tracking purposes.
Okay, that's what I thought. Thank you.
Excellent.
Austin.
First off, thank you for the clarification in regards to board authority and everything. And I know there's legislation in regards to investment pool options for local governments in this upcoming legislative session. Is there anything we need to consider for language with this if that in fact does pass this next legislative cycle for us to use common investment pools? Or does the current or is this language flexible enough to allow us to do that?
Depending on what the language is, that if it is passed, what it would be. I know the OCCA does come out with policy revisions based on legislation, but this policy should be broad enough to cover that. The state currently already has one pooled account, the LGIP pool, which we do participate in, and that's an investment pool that we already access. But this should be liberal enough, but I can't say for sure depending on what the language is.
100%. Just a follow-up question. That pool, is it really flexible enough though if we did in fact had it like a emergency and we needed those funds like as soon as possible? Does that investment pool currently have that flexibility?
We can withdraw funds at any point without penalty out of the pool.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Zach, I see your hand.
Thank you. Can you just speak to, would there ever be a situation where the board might need its own contingency and what that might be used for?
Well, that usually contingencies are non-spending accounts that are set aside for unusual situations, but we would hope that through the budget development process, if there's something specific the board would like to see added to the budget, that we do it in the planning process and that we continue to keep the contingency account as an as-needed purpose in the side. But even changing the structure of this contingency account to one, it still allows the board the same flexibility as having the 2 separate accounts.
Okay, and then with regards to process, You mentioned this two-step process of the president recommending and the board approving. And so is that the case for both of these two funds now?
It is,
Okay,
yes.
that answers my questions. Thank you. Any other questions about this first board policy? See Julie.
I just want to make a comment. I just want to acknowledge staff. Policy changes are just complicated. They're ugly. It's hard to understand in grok and quick reads. And you guys have been presenting and explaining these things very well. And I just want to thank you for that.
Thank you very much. Whenever I can bring, phone a friend along with me, it helps.
That's for sure.
Thank you. So I think we're moving to the next board policy.
Mhm.
If someone would like to explain that one.
Oh, I thought you,
I
yeah.
haven't handled them all.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you did. I think it's the next one's, Chair, I apologize. I think it's the enrollment retention report, because I think you covered all the policies.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I had a question about a different one. For some reason, I thought we were going through them sort of one at a time. Apologies. So I have one more question. Can you speak to the interfund loans and borrowing from the early retirement fund? Those are the college's funds, right? I'm just making sure we're not going to get into a situation where we might need those dollars for early retirements to, balance the budget. But then if we've loaned it to ourselves for another use, we might be in a difficult situation, I think was one question. And then just, confirming that this is college funds, not retirement funds that belong to particular employees.
Correct. And most of this policy is still original language, but your question is appropriate. It's all college funds. There isn't a separate, all of the early retirement funds are initially transferred from the general fund, but even to initiate interfund loans, it would still require some board action. So if there were ever a point we wanted to loan, and in the only circumstances I've seen where interfund loans are really appropriate are if there's a one-time situation where a fund is particularly negative and you would borrow from that particular fund. And I haven't seen that in the last few years of the college, but it would require board action at that time. You could certainly ask those questions, but these are all college funds.
Do we know why that language had been included previously to not allow loans from that early retirement fund? Do we know what the reasoning was previously?
You all look to the resident historian.
Yeah, I was just.
I don't know when that language was added, and I actually was somewhat surprised that that's still in there, only because of the impact of the state's 8th quarter payment issue. Many of the community colleges in the state have adjusted their policies to give them flexibility in order to do loans short term for instances like we run into at the end of a biennium. You may recall when we were faced with the uncertainty about whether a budget was going to be passed in the last legislative full session, we were looking at the possibility of having to take out a loan in order to cover our expenses for a few months and would have incurred, I think it was close to a couple $100,000 in interest because of that. So this is one of those instances where you could use that short-term loan to avoid having to spend money on interest.
Zach, Steve.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. I was just about done. I think that I think I've got it right. Thanks.
Go ahead, Steve.
I'm just reading through these now, and I see that in some cases, the policy language starts off by saying the board may, do X, the board may do Y. And in other policies, there's no mention of the board's authority at all. So in those cases where it's not mentioned at all, how do we know it exists? How is it implied?
Because the easy answer is these are all your policies. They're the board's policies, so you have full control.
Yep.
Okay.
It looked like you were going to say something else.
No, the only context I was going to add is some of these policies read to me like directing staff like myself of what's allowable to do, and some of them could be action that could be initiated by you with working with the president. So that could be some of the clarification why it's written that way. That would be my only other thought.
For me, it's the inconsistency that makes for lack of clarity. If none of them had mentioned the board at all, then I would just assume that that's where the authority lay. But since some do and some don't, then I'm left wondering why not for the others. So if I was to make any recommendation, it would be to make it consistent across all of them.
Okay, any other questions or comments regarding board policies? Okay, thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is an enrollment and retention report. President Bulger, will you please introduce this item?
Yes, we're going to have Dr. Joyce present this report. This is a periodic report that we give to the board related to one of the president's goals about enrollment. It's how we measure progress. And Colum, would you share this report?
Thank you, Dr. Bulger, Board of Education. I'm going to give a update on our enrollment. So we're going to go to the next slide. So the purpose of this report is to provide enrollment, FTE, and retention trends over the past number of years and kind of where we're going. So if we could go to slide 3, please. So this slide here, if you go from left to right, you'll see academic year 20 through to academic year 24. This is our enrollment gains. And in this graph, enrollment refers to the number of courses a student has registered for up through and are still enrolled in up through the end of week 2. And this data includes all credit, non-credit, and College Now students as well. So those classes that they're in. This is basically what you can see from this. It gives you a good idea of class of students who were registered for and enrolled in at the end of week 2. You can see the kind of the bottom of the trough was around 22, and we've really improved a lot with our enrollments. We're not quite where we were with students in classes where we were around academic year 20 and before that, but you can see there is an improvement in this. We're going to go to the next slide, please. What we just talked about, the enrollments, it ties into contact hours. This graph here, I think, is a good visual. It really gives you an idea. We've got 3 different lines in this. We've got credit, College Now, and non-credit. If you can look at the top of the green one there, the credit, you can see kind of when the Great Recession ended, we really started to lose enrollment every year for a number of years, and right through to the COVID pandemic, and you can see we've started to come out of that. When it comes to College Now and non-credit, we did hit a bottom we really haven't came out of that yet at this point. When it comes to this, so basically this is really about FTE, the estimate for a student type for academic years 2008 through 24. When it comes to FTE, it's calculated by the number of hours in any course that HEC basically describes as reimbursable. So you can see that we are improving, but we've got a ways to go still to get back to where we were. To put this into context, a couple of years ago, we had financial consultants come out and look to what they looked at was our FTE and a lot of different things. But to get to a place where the college was getting comfortable financially, 8,500 FTEs was that place. Kind of based upon this, we've got to move a bit in that direction. We've really got to focus on our enrollments and invest in enrollment. And when it comes to it too, we probably need to look at our continuing community education, reinvesting in that area. We lost a lot of that during COVID, and we had some layoffs during that period too. If we can jump to the next
Dr.
slide.
Joyce, do you
Sorry,
want
yeah.
questions during or
Oh.
at the end only?
Well, maybe at the end because we've got plenty of
That's
time,
fine. Okay.
if that's all right. And we can jump back
Yep.
slides. All right. So the next one here, this is unduplicated head count. So this is basically, it's the number of unduplicated students in credit courses during the fall term, looking back fall term a number of years. You can see that it's took us a while. We had the same trough. You can see where it is, and it does correlate a lot with our enrollment in specific classes. This data excludes College Now. One of the things about our state and especially our district in the last years, our high schools have moved to a semester system. And the way College Now credit works, if a student's enrolled at a high school in a college class with Lane, they around the 8th week or later there, they can decide whether they want to apply that. If they get a C grade, for instance, and they don't want it to go towards the college transcript, they can say they don't. So we don't really know those numbers until a little later. And so that's why they're not included in this. But we've tried to compare apples to apples in this graph. And I've also got Kathy as well, who can explain things in really good detail. She's my what was it, dial a friend? Yeah, dial a friend. That's Kathy. And so, and we'll jump to the next slide. So, is it possible to move the text a little bit there?
Do we need that text?
Yeah, for accommodation, accessibility as well. So, okay, thank you. So what this slide shows is fall to winter retention going back 2019, 2023. So this is a fall cohort students, degree seeking students who come in fall. So fall of 19, we had 77% of our students managed to get through to winter term, if you can see the top blue line. And we had a dip again in 2021, 22, and we're up to 76% of our students who are degree seeking are getting to the winter term and are still enrolled after a few weeks in winter term. Fall to fall retention never matches that, but you've always got to try and aim to get as closely as you can. And we're at 51% right now of our students who enroll in the fall cohort are degree seeking and actually get through a year later and they're still registered at the college. This is probably the primary area in what I do in our enrollment that we're trying to work on this year. We have a new kind of a student services model that we're implementing, and I've mentioned it in prior board meetings, but this is the part we've got to impact the students get through winter, but enrolling at higher rates the next fall, increasing that. Ties in our state funding as well for student completions. And so I think it's crucial that we make this happen. It's crucial for our students. And I think I'll jump to the next slide. So this one, it's basically, this is fall to fall retention. It's breaking down a little bit the same students we were just talking about in that prior slide. So if you look at the left-hand side, all degree seeking students, we've made some inroads there between fall of 2017 and fall of 2023, and this is fall to fall retention. Breaking it down into other groups, so students who are first time in college, we went up and down a little bit. This is students who this is the first time they've actually attended any college, and so that one we're a bit lower than we were in 22. We still wait for 24's numbers to come in. And prior college, we've made some big inroads in helping those students who've attended colleges elsewhere to come here and succeed going through the entire year. And then you've got the other two columns. That's students who are going full-time and students who are going part-time. Students who go full-time, the data, the research says that they are much more likely to complete and succeed than those going part-time. And we've run reports a fair bit lately. I've been working with Kathy, and we have seen an increase in students going full-time this year and last year versus prior years, and that's always a goal to try and attain. So, so big thing about this, though, the fall to fall retention is This is the area where we can make the most headway. We can work on trying to bring in new students. We really can do a good job of that. We increased the number of our students that we went from applied to enrolled this year. We done, I think, a 6% increase there, applied to enrolled. But what we really need to work on, where we can make the most impact, is when the students are here and the experience they have here in the classroom and with our supports. That's where we can help retain students more effectively. We had a student focus group today, and we asked them a lot of different questions, and they gave us some really good input about their experiences here, what they were missing, what they needed, what we were doing well. So we're trying to capture that and help them get through. I think that might be the last slide. So questions? Yes, Chair.
I see Austin.
First off, I just want to say that these enrollment increases have been despite of those, the financial aid, situation. So
Yeah.
I just wanted to really kind of like add that to the story here and
Yes.
really compliment you, your staff, for helping students, because I know that there's been studies of who was impacted by that. It was mostly marginalized students.
Yes.
And I know that your staff you have been really helpful in those marginalized students and getting through that process and getting them enrolled and getting them into full-time status. So I really wanted to thank that. One thing I wasn't seeing in those enrollments, I think in a past presentation, it was mostly workforce. No, it wasn't. It was like short-term certifications and also, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. Workforce related. Thank you.
CTE.
CTE, yes, thank you. CTE enrollments. Is that still the case? With those
Yes, we're exactly the same as we were last year. From the 24 data, and 56% of our students are declared as CTE, versus 44 of them for transfer.
Gotcha. Perfect. Was it the same thing with short-term certifications?
I'd have to look at that data.
No worries.
Yeah.
We can get that data later.
Steve, I recognize Steve.
I have two questions. I'll do the easy one first. What do you think accounts for I'm going to call it loss of interest by our community in not for credit courses? I think it's something like half as many. It's even maybe less, like a third as many folks are there now as there were some 10 years ago.
I'm not do you have a history on this? What happened?
And Dr. Tinkham is actually online, and I think we also have some academic affairs administrators in the audience too that may be able to speak to that. Dr. Joyce.
Yeah. Do you want to mention?
Hello, board. Grant Matthews with Academic Affairs. I think that the main reason for that trend has to do with the pandemic did have an impact on participation levels. And because of that, we had to adjust resources, and that resource adjustment has not shifted back to supporting as much of the community ed. We do have quite a bit of community ed and other non-credit in some of our centers, like in Florence and Cottage Grove, but particularly in this area, not as much. And so the resources and infrastructure to support increased enrollments there have not been brought back yet.
Zach, I see your hand. I'd like to recognize Shelley, if that's okay.
Yes. Thank you for allowing me to speak to this. And I support what Grant said. And I just wanted to also offer that if you recall, earlier in the fall, we also projected enrollments. And we would like to develop a greater commitment towards our non-credit offerings moving forward. So that is something that we are currently investigating. And, and our desire is to bring that back and also examine, what we were doing in the past and what changes we might want to do in the future.
Just as a comment for whatever it's worth, that's, we get a third of our funding, right, from the, through the tax base, et cetera. And so from my perspective, this is one way that the institution kind of gives back to that, group of folks who are supporting us, who aren't directly benefiting because they're not attending, or their kids or whatever are not attending, but the extent to which we are working hard to reach out to them and make things available that would be of interest in terms of their own enrichment, or that kind of thing, I think is really, really valuable. And I get that there's lots of financial pressures, but it's a little dispiriting to see the numbers that dip so low. So, and I'm sure you feel the same way, but I'm just commenting.
And if I could add, we had a team of us, and we met with Russ from Florence campus, and they've rebounded in the number and the types of community education type classes there. And it was exciting to see they've got information they send out to households, and it seems like it's becoming more vibrant again out there. And so we here again, we've lost a lot of that.
I should just add, because we're on this topic, that the legislature made a decision in 2007 to stop funding and providing state support for the most of these types of programs. And so you saw a pretty serious decline of these programs begin shortly after that. Some colleges have phased out these types of programs altogether because of that. Arnie Roblin was Speaker of the Oregon House for a few years. He used to represent the Oregon coast from about Florence down to the Coos Bay area. And he would oftentimes talk about the impact that decision that the legislature had on community colleges around the state. He blames the fact that many of the rural colleges, their inability to pass bond measure campaigns, he says it's because the legislature stopped funding the type of courses that Oregonians wanted to take once they moved on in life and wanted to do lifelong learning, right? So, I mean, the pandemic impacted us. A lot of other players came to the game. You see a lot more opportunities for continuing ed from the universities. And then we also locked people in their homes for 2 years and gave them YouTube and other opportunities. So it's been very difficult for many colleges to bring these programs back and charge rates that are fairly expensive compared to what many folks remember we used to charge for them. And that's because the state no longer supports us in these efforts.
Thank you, Brett. Appreciate that.
Any more questions?
I do, but I feel like I took some time. Maybe I'll let Zach speak. And
Sure.
I do have that hard question I'll come back to.
Okay, Zach, go ahead.
Yeah, following up on this first, can you just give a sense of what those classes were in terms of non-credit classes? Is this art and music, or is it like people that are trying to finish high school and they need a last couple classes that don't get college credit? Can you give a sense of now and in the past, what are these types of classes, and for the non-credit classes, and who was the audience participating?
From what I gathered, a number of the classes included kind of computer education type classes, technology. They included community trips going out to wineries. They included, I think there were language classes too. There were done.
It was everything from salsa dancing to foreign language for community members to learn, to accounting classes. It was quite broad. And at the time, you may recall, we used to publish a quarterly magazine that went out to mailboxes, and that cost the college a little over $300,000 a year. So it wasn't a cheap endeavor to get that out. But oftentimes, community members could work with the college to announce a class. We would advertise it, and as long as there were a certain number of enrollments for that class, it would be able to continue. But because there wasn't state support, if you only had 1 or 2 people register for the class, it wouldn't be able to move forward. So that was just one of the other challenges that these classes faced.
And looking at the Florence guide recently, there was a couple of classes I could mention. There was like yoga, and I believe there might have been Tai Chi, but there was also, for some of the elder community, understanding your iPhone and understanding your Samsung. I thought those were great. They made me smile. So,
Yeah. I wonder, Grant, did you want to add anything?
The only thing I would add is that we, in the non-credit realm, we typically have kind of 2 categories. One would be workforce development type trainings, and the other would be the more personal enrichment. And the classes that have just been mentioned were mostly the personal enrichment ones. Art fitness, other types of things like that. Those are the ones that we've seen the biggest decline in. The other side, the workforce development side for short-term non-credit trainings, CNA, phlebotomy, massage therapy, others like that, we continue to see strong enrollments in those areas.
Zach?
Yeah, I think basically sort of the same question as was originally raised for this with regards to the college now, and just do we know why we've seen about a third reduction there from prior to COVID?
I think from what I've gathered, speaking with Justin, that the number of enrollments from College Now hasn't increased significantly. I think mainly based upon the population isn't increasing there from what I've gathered. Our teams, but between our recruitment on our side and Justin's side, we do a lot of work out with our high schools. We have high school luncheons. We visit every high school in the county multiple times a year. And where I met with Justin actually yesterday to see about developing new strategies to increase the number of College Now students taking classes. So this is something that's on a real part of, I'm working closer with that group because I think in the past we've been separate entities, and I think we can do more together. Yeah.
Sorry, what was the name of that other group you're working with?
College Now, Justin works for Workforce, but under the College Now, high school comes under his area.
Okay,
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Thanks very much. I appreciate your work.
So it's basically that college and the high school model. Yeah.
Steve?
Yeah, thank you. Just to follow up on the first part of the discussion, and really following up on what Brett said, that I see that I remember getting that little booklet, in my house for years, right? And then it went away. And I just think it is such an incredible kind of outreach tool, right? It's subtle but sort of very powerful, effect on people's sort of willingness to support when we come asking for money. So if we can't, for financial reasons and other kinds of reasons, build that back up again, and maybe that's just a thing of the past and it's, without legislative support, we're not going to get there. We have to replace it with something, right? Because then we run the risk of what's happening in the coastal communities, where people feel like, well, I'm not really sure what's happening in my community college anymore. Maybe I don't need to support this the way I used to. So I think that's a real risk long term, not short term. I don't think we've ever come that close in our recent bonds to having them fail, but it's a long term risk that we ought to be thinking about. I'll move on to my other question. So with regard to the fall enrollment, every time I see that number, it's unbelievable to me. Not LCC. My guess is it's not all that different from any other community college. But I work at a university where that fall is something almost always above 90%. So I get that we're dealing with a very different population, and that's mostly what those numbers say to me. And I know that we invested a lot of money recently in a software program, the enrollment management program. You alluded to it in your comments up front.
Yes.
My understanding of those kinds of things is that they have a lot of capacity built into them that often goes underutilized because it requires a lot of high touch from a wide range of folks, right? Faculty have to decide to use it. They have to, just because they have the ability to get into the system and say, hey, student X, I could tell, whatever, was doing great at the beginning of the term, not doing so great now. I want to alert a counselor. Yes. Somebody has to punch that in. And my guess is that is often where these things fall down. It's not the software, it's sort of getting the campus to sort of adopt it and go with it. And I would love to have, if other board members are willing, kind of an update, progress report on where we're at with that software, what we think its successes have been, and where we need to invest in, or whatever it might be, to get more value out of it. Because at the end of the day, it's meant to attack that number, and 50% doesn't seem so great to me.
Yeah, absolutely. We actually have two systems. We've got Target X on the front end. That's basically our customer relationship management system, and that's to help us bring the students in with communications, a wide variety of communications, but able to track how students are doing through the process and what they still need to do, and give them reminders. That's improved things, and that's part of our kind of admission to enrollment increase of those students. But I can give you a lot more details about that. And then we've got Navigate, which is when students are here. It's that communication tool, how we're tracking what students are doing, what they're using, and how we message them. And so all of that we'll do. And I'd be really happy to give a presentation on how we're using those, and then maybe on our new kind of student services model too, and how that's going to tie in, because that's the high touch part. Yeah.
I'll follow Zach, just putting this out there for you. I'll follow the new process that has been outlined by our board leadership to make a request for for a work session or whatever it might be, and see if we can get board support. I'll do that after the meeting.
Thank you.
Zach, I see your hand. I also see Dr. Tinkham's hand, and she probably would like to weigh in.
And I would too.
And I have Denise.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Shelley.
Oh, I just wanted to compliment what Dr. Joyce had said in response to board member Steve Mattel's question. What Student Affairs is working very closely with faculty. I just attended a division meeting where faculty are being trained how to use that early alert system. And it is indeed happening, and it is indeed resulting in students getting services so that they can be retained. So that is indeed happening, and faculty are being trained, and we're upgrading our systems.
Thank you. Zach, go ahead.
Well, I think you might have touched on what I was going to ask about, which is how are we identifying students that are having trouble in their classes and reaching out to them proactively to help them before they reach the point where they might not want to stay the next term?
Yeah, that is something we are doing. We used to, we flipped our model almost 2 years ago, where we were reaching out to students who were struggling. Instead, what we started to do is look for indicators that they might be starting to struggle and try and get them earlier in the term. And so we are working with faculty on that. We're also working this retention via relationship with our academic partners, where we're sending announcements out to faculty to read out to students in the classroom about, we realize like 60% of our class hasn't registered for next term. You need to get on that. So we're really working with our faculty on doing that, and I think it's making a difference. We have seen some changes with that. Yes.
Thank you.
Zach, any other questions? No. Yep, I got Sophie, but Denise is in the queue.
Thanks. I'm familiar with that first alert system, and it can be very successful. I think it certainly has to, excuse me, build a momentum of comfort, right, of using it. And, you know, sometimes there's particular timeframes, like even before midterms, of course, right? In preparation for unit exams or different kinds of things like that, that faculty are probably pretty aware of.
Yes.
But students also, and sometimes students might not be aware of all the support and tutorial services that are available, peer support and otherwise. So I think those kinds of announcements and flyers and information is I think always useful. I don't know if we have like an electronic message board that kind of constantly, you know, says, by the way, the lab, or by the way, the tutoring center. But I think those kinds of things can be fun and useful. What I was going to also just ask is, you had mentioned earlier about having a student group that gave a lot of useful feedback.
Yes.
And I'm wondering if that wouldn't also be a really good technique to do with the community ed courses. Send out a survey. I know sometimes I've gone to, for example, to the Florence Event Center, and organizations that are really trying to promote the arts, right, in various events. I can't think of the name of one, but I've gone in there a couple of times where there are surveys
Yes.
right? Right at the table, just as you come in and it's like, how do you feel about the arts coming to the community? What else would you like to see? And this collected data, then helps to support grants or other presentations, right? That the city might use in the same way. Right. Reaching out. We have the mailing list. We have the people who had been getting all these notifications and just that dialogue.
Yes.
Right. I think people don't mind doing, surveys and giving their point of view.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sophie?
Great. So I think mine is less of an ask and more of a comment, but I really love that idea of starting in a classroom because we can't really see face to face what students are struggling when we're here. But, we have a lot of invested faculty that really care about our students, and they're the ones who see head on which students are struggling and which students need help. And so I've seen this implementation over the last 3 years that I've been here of announcements being made by faculty about registration dates and when students can go and get resources and et cetera. And I think it's really been very helpful. And I think that we should continue to implement in-class reach out because, that's where students are. So
Yeah,
thank
and
you.
and faculty are possibly the greatest mentors for students at the college. That's
yeah.
that they spend most of the time in the classroom, or the lab. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. Zach, just so you know, we've just used up the allotted time for this agenda item. You probably can't see the clock very well. So it looks like we have concluded
We
that.
got through the board policies pretty quick, so I think we're still a little bit ahead. But yeah,
Agreed.
there's not any other questions or comments from board members. Just want to thank you, staff. Appreciate your presentation on this topic.
Thank you. And I got to say, our classified staff do so much work on enrollment day in, day out, and that's who I applaud. Thank you.
Hey, the next item on the agenda is a respiratory care program. President Bulger, will you please introduce this item?
Absolutely. We are pleased to introduce two programs tonight. This will be the first read for the board on these two programs. I'm going to let Dr. Tinkham introduce this and all of the folks who are here to present this information.
Good evening, everyone. It's with great pleasure that we bring forth a new program for you to consider. This is the Associate of Applied Science in Respiratory Care. The work that you have in front of you is a culmination of well over a year's worth of hard work and dedication. This program was developed in partnership with Peace Health, and on with us this evening, I believe, panelists in the panelist view. Yes, we have Nicole Gooding. She is our partner at Peace Health, who has been assisting us develop this program. And I do need to mention that this program was made possible by a grant that was provided to us from Peace Health. With us this evening, we have faculty member Casey Ellis. She is the individual who really did all the curriculum development for this program. Also, Corey Miner, the Dean of Health Professions, and Grant Matthews, Associate Vice President for CETE Programs in Academic Affairs. And I would like for these three individuals to come to the podium and to present the program to you this evening. They'll give you an overview and you will then have the opportunity to ask questions.
Hello, board members. My name is Casey Ellis. Thank you for having me here tonight. I'm here to talk about the respiratory care program. I am a respiratory care practitioner and have been here for 20 years. I previously did work for Peace Health before coming to LCC. Respiratory therapists are licensed healthcare professionals that take care of patients with respiratory compromise. They perform medication administration, therapies, and to patients with both acute and long-term lung diseases. They perform diagnostic tests for those experiencing respiratory symptoms and provide life-saving support for a wide range of patients. COVID-19 really highlighted the role of the respiratory therapist as these were respiratory patients. LCC did have a respiratory program through 2017 that was shut down for kind of some, I think, short-sighted reasons. But we're now in a place where we are really struggling to find new therapists in our community. There are 3 other colleges within our state that offer respiratory care. 2 are in Portland. 1 is down in Klamath Falls. So that leaves a very large gap within our state. A lot of those students end up going north and south as well. So this is a really good time, I believe, to add the program. Our current largest hospital organization, Peace Health, is actually recruiting in California because they can't find people within the state. So that, again, adds to the urgency of needing more therapists in our community. I'd be happy to take any questions that you have.
Chair.
Austin?
Yeah, enough said, right? First off, I really appreciate the workforce component of this. There is a huge need for this and so forth. And yeah, I agree with you in regards to back in 2017. We obviously didn't know that there was going to be a major respiratory viral pandemic situation, of course. But I wanted to kind of go a little bit more in depth with 2017. What was the kind of reasoning around the dropping of this program?
Yeah, so unfortunately, none of us here were in leadership roles over the programs at that point in time. So I can't speak to exact details as to why. I do know that from the research that I've done that the institution was looking at budgetary deficits during that time, and a decision was made that this was one of the programs that was eliminated during that stretch of time. My assumption based on that is it had budgetary justifications, but none of us have been able to surface documentation or other rationale that provides an in-depth response.
Understood. And since I have you, is this stackable with other programs at all, or?
So the prerequisites, and Casey can speak more to this as well. The prerequisites are very similar or identical to those of the nursing program. And so students will have opportunities as they're finishing up their prerequisite coursework to make some choices at that point in time. So in that sense, it has some stackable concepts, but it is not a stackable credential in that there is not a credential that they can earn that is a certificate form of respiratory care that would lead to the degree. It would just be the degree in this situation.
Understood. Thank you.
Denise?
Just curious, does the EMT program utilize some of the courses? Is there a bridge there? Do EMTs have to have some of this background knowledge?
I can answer that. So all of the healthcare programs have their own dedicated curriculums that are dictated by national accreditations. So EMS, so paramedic training and RT training is very similar, and they actually have a lot of crossover in terms of the skill sets, and they can actually do a lot of things together. But the program courses are independent in both of those. The prerequisite courses, as Grant just mentioned, are the same, are very, very similar, if not the exact same, but the program courses are independent.
So I know that sometimes, right, you can achieve a certificate that's like an add-on set of skills to your primary skill set. But I just heard you say that there really isn't a certificate way to take that. Some of those skills, right, or we're not going in that direction where you would have some skill set that would fall into a certificate that sometimes we use and say, oh, I also have this additional, I don't know what you'd call it, add-on, or
I understand.
there's a term I think we use.
Yeah, in this particular case, both of those programs, as well as nursing, PTA, some of the others, are terminal degrees,
Right.
with professional licensure at the end of it.
Okay. No add-ons of, okay. Thank you.
Zach?
Yeah, excuse me. You mentioned there being a partnership with Peace Health that was allowing this program to come back, and sounded like there was an exciting community partnership there that was helping support this program coming back. Can you speak a little bit more about what that looks like and how they're supporting this program?
Yeah, so Peace Health provided initial funding to be able to develop the program, and they've also made a commitment to helping us find clinical spaces for the students as they reach the clinical components of their education. So, Peace Health continues to be a very strong partner in our health programs, and this is another area where both financially, in order to help us get the initial costs of putting a program together, are being helped in covered by their grant, as well as the ongoing support that they've promised through clinical placements.
Dr. Tinkham?
Yes, we do have Nicole Gooding with us this evening. I don't know if she would like to speak to our partnership.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Nicole Gooding. I'm the director for the Institute for Nursing Excellence, and I'm really, really excited about this program. When I first came to Peace Health, I was new to Oregon, and it was during the middle of the pandemic, and we had, at the time, a crisis in our respiratory therapists, our workforce. I did a little bit of research, and back in 2021, the state of Oregon graduated a total of 51 respiratory therapists. 51. We had almost 51 openings at that time. And so one of the reasons why we are so committed to this program is because we will have positions for these graduates, and we will have a continual need for these graduates. And so we can offer these graduates employment once they graduate. Thank you.
Dr. Tinkham?
Yes, and I want to just, illustrate, our mission as a community college is that we are the community's college, and programs like this and how they were developed exemplifies that relationship that we do have with our community, and it's very unique and it's very special. And without the support of Peace Health, we would not have had the upfront resources to invest in this program that is so desperately needed by our community, and is going to provide our students with jobs and opportunities that's going to be excellent for them, but also they're going to be giving back.
Steve?
I just wanted to follow up on that. These kinds of presentations are my favorite. When you folks come up and say, hey, we've got this new program and we've been spending a bunch of time on it. We've been meeting with our community partners. They're committed. There's going to be jobs for our students. Like, that's the best. That's what we're here for, right? So it's like the highlight of my day. I want to thank you in particular, Casey, because I understand that you're the lead on this. I know that developing a curriculum like this can be daunting. I hope you're proud, and I'm looking forward to supporting it next month.
Thank you very much. I will say I have had the opportunity. One problem that we can have with these types of programs is finding placement for our students to get their education. I've talked to really all of the hospitals within our region, and they are so excited that we're coming back. Our program previously was very well respected, and I graduated here as well. So I have definitely a love for it. So
thank you.
Mr. Chair, it looks like we're ready for the next agenda item.
Thank you. President Bolger, would you like to introduce the RN to BSN degree?
Yes, well, if you were excited about that program, you'll be excited about this one as well. So I will ask Dr. Tinkham to introduce the team that's going to talk about the RN to BSN degree.
Absolutely. This is another one. We're absolutely delighted to bring this to you. I would like to invite to the podium Jen Tavernier. She is the Associate Dean of Health Professions and also our Director of Nursing. With her tonight, we have one faculty member, Courtney Konopasek. She is joining us remotely, and she is also here to help present this program. If you recall, last November, the board approved the degree type The approval of the BSN in Oregon is a two-step phase because community colleges have just recently gotten the authority to offer applied baccalaureates. So now we told you we would be bringing back the curriculum for your consideration. So tonight you have the full proposal in front of you, and I'm going to turn this over to Jen Tavernier to provide an overview. And then also I should mention as well, Corey Miner and Grant Matthews will be staying at the podium because they might add some additional commentary as well. So Jennifer, please take it away.
Okay. Board members, thank you for having us tonight. As Shelley mentioned, we've been working hard on this program for about the last year since you last saw us when we were ready to submit our statement of need. The BSN degree is extremely important to the nursing profession. The Institute of Medicine said long ago, 30 years or so ago, that the entry level for nursing should be the bachelor degree. We have trailed behind for years and years on that, and now are producing about 71% of our nursing workforce has bachelor's degrees, though we know that our healthcare outcomes are significantly improved when the nurses are educated at the minimum level of a bachelor degree. Associate degree nurses are ready for practice. They leave our associate degree program, which is the largest associate degree program in the state of Oregon. They leave us ready for practice. They're prepared at a technical level. The bachelor degree in nursing prepares them for professional levels of nursing. So the bachelor degree prepares them for leadership roles. It prepares them for roles in clinical education. It prepares them for work in public health nursing, which is one of our greatest needs right now. And it prepares them to move on for a master's degree in which they might go into nursing education or become primary care providers. So this is an important step. This is important to our community. We have a crisis in our community. We are so low staffed for nurses. We trail behind the national rate of bachelor prepared nurses. So nationally, we're about 71%. Lane County is about 65%. So we have a significant need. We will give to our community and that it will improve our healthcare outcomes, but it's also going to help our associate degree nurses continue on for a bachelor degree. Most of our students aren't able to get into a four-year program. Our four-year programs in this state admit only about 35% of those who apply. So this is making it a huge possibility for them. We have surveyed our students over the last couple of years to make sure that our students would want to attend our program if we developed one. And 100% of the students who responded have said yes. And one of the reasons for that is because they feel comfortable with our faculty. They feel comfortable here in our community. They feel comfortable at Lane Community College with the resources that Lane has to offer them. Questions for me?
Excellent.
Austin?
Yeah, first off, I completely agree with that statement in that, you know, when you have someone here at this institution, it's easier for them to move on and continue their education if they already know the staff, they already know the buildings, they already know, you know, where to get food, you know, even like micro things like that. Overall, I'm in full support of this, obviously, but I really just want to emphasize the need of healthcare workers, of nurses in our community. Yeah, I really look forward to seeing this program get launched.
Okay, thank you.
Denise?
What I understand from having experience, I'm not a nurse, but I was a part of a community college that had a significant nursing program. And what I understand is not unlike what might have been one of the issues with respiratory care, and that is having options for clinical, you know, clinical placements that are reasonable and where students can go. So that kind of partnership seems to, you know, really, really be important, and offering a continuum, you know, seems to help deal with some of, those obstacles. I think encouraging the continuum is always a great idea because, again, what I understand to be one of the obstacles in nursing is actually nursing educators. Nursing schools don't have enough nurses who, are in that field, and we don't have enough nursing programs across the country. So anything we can do to keep the pipeline going would be great.
Thank you.
Julie.
I'm really excited about this, and I have friends who've gone through the nursing program at Lane. I have friends who've made decisions about their education because there wasn't an easy path to a bachelor. And so they had to kind of settle for something else. And so I'm really, 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 really excited that a barrier has been removed for professional development and choice. And so just thank you. And I'm very excited.
Yeah.
Zach and then Steve.
Yeah, I think I'll be repeating others, just saying this sounds like it's filling a really vital need in our community, and something that, is just a critical building block for our local healthcare system. And so just thanks for your work putting this together and creating this pathway for our local residents to get this training to serve this critical need. And, just for this as well as for the respiratory care program. Just great work and very excited to see it move forward. Thank you.
Steve.
Just echoing things, also very excited to support this in a couple of weeks, whenever it is it comes to us. Wanted to just say wow, the fact that we have this health sciences building that's about to launch, and now we have, I assume a program that's going into it. That was a brilliant stroke. I don't know who gets the credit for thinking about all, bringing all of those things, those synergies together at the same time. That is fantastic. And, my guess is as a result, we get to go head to head with four-year institutions, and I applaud that. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Can we vote on this now? Like, I'm just
All right, Mr. Chair, it looks like we're ready for the next item.
Okay, thank you. Well, it looks like we'll be moving on to closing items. Are there any board member questions or comments?
Board chair.
Austin.
First off, I wanted to go back to what I was mentioning in regards to a letter that we could write to our congressional delegation and pass it here at the board. We've done this before. We actually did this during the walkout with the Senate walkout. We wrote a letter to the Senate leadership. And I would like to do something similar to that in regards to our congressional delegation here in the state of Oregon. And I trust our communications and government relations team to be able to write such a letter. And I'm just asking for the board to support that. Chair, I do not know if you want me to submit that in writing in the form process, or if this is the right avenue to submit such a request.
Well, I think I'd like a little bit more clarity on exactly what a letter would say and look like. And so if you desire to bring forward a letter for the board to work on and want to work on that with staff to bring forward, what that would include. I think that would maybe be a process that would make sense.
Yeah, absolutely. The last time we did this, then Chair Rosie Pryor essentially worked with Brett and the president to develop that letter I believe at the request of the board even. So I was thinking we could do that same process, or I'm willing to do whatever is the will of the chair or the board.
I think if you can at least articulate what you would hope would be included, and then we can figure out how to discuss that at our next convenience.
Excellent.
Denise, and then I'll put myself in the queue.
Yeah, I think developing the point, and also I don't know if there's a template, because I'm wondering if other community colleges or educational institutions are, are doing similar. So therefore, if the template is somewhat similar, that helps a lot. That just adds voices to the point.
I think Brett has a good answer for that.
I was just going to suggest, there's a lot of unknowns at the moment. The new Congress won't be seated until January, so we have a little bit of time. The Department of Education itself cannot be done away with without an act of Congress. So most likely it would take 60 votes in the Senate to get that through. I do think some of I think it's more concerning that they would attempt to move some of the responsibilities from the Department of Education to other agencies and pretty much make the department an empty department. But that said, I think our letter would be more effective if we stand ready to move when we have more details. And I suspect that, once President-elect Trump takes office January 20th, we'll have a better sense of what their plan is. But you meet on the second Wednesday of January, then again in February. And I would think that by the time we attend the National Legislative Summit in DC in February, we should have a little bit better sense of what they have planned. So potentially it would even make sense to deliver the letter to the offices of the Oregon delegation when that trip's done in February.
Absolutely. And just furthermore, OCCA, we're having a discussion of if there should be a joint effort or other efforts that the community colleges of the state of Oregon should pursue. This was an idea that came up.
It may be implied in this conversation, but I just want to be explicit that we have to include the president in this process.
Okay. Any other comments? Austin?
Yeah, what was also discussed was in regards to Bigfoot Beverage in previous in the strike that's continuing on, and what are some possibilities of what we can do. Kyle, I believe it's Kyle Abraham, our attorney, gave us some legal advice via email to the board that would share it out to everyone. And I just wanted to request that the chair, vice chair, and the president consider actions up to a suspension or pause of the contract per section 6.9, under which suspension could possibly occur due to unfair labor practices, and or at the very least a letter to our vendor stating that we are stating our disappointment in the labor relations situations that Bigfoot Beverage is undertaking.
I'll put myself in the queue there if I could respond.
Go ahead.
I've got 4 large concerns about that idea. The first one is the board's primary responsibility is to oversee the management of the college and ensure financial stability and student success. So involving ourselves in an external labor dispute could distract us from our core mission and could lead to conflicts of interest. Secondly, has to do with lack of jurisdiction. The board has no direct involvement or authority over private companies. Third, public institutions need to strive to maintain neutrality, both political and social neutrality. So a letter could be seen as taking sides in a private sector labor dispute, which could have negative consequences. It could alienate community members, students, faculty, staff who might not agree with that particular position. And then finally, there are potential legal and ethical issues, I think. So again, involving ourselves in a private business matter would certainly raise ethical concerns. And it could open the college to legal challenges. It could negatively affect the college's reputation and standing in the community when we go out to ask for money in terms of a future bond measure. So I just really want to caution the board in this process. Thank you.
Can I ask something?
Denise.
So it sounds like a very, lots of very good points brought up, and it sounds like good guidance is legal counsel. Is this an opportunity for the board to utilize legal counsel?
And
Yes, Chair, Chair Mulholland, I did share legal opinion from our legal counsel with the board members, and I can certainly send that again if that would be helpful.
Thank you. So in terms of process, Austin, I think if you are wanting some type of a letter or, unless they've broken their contract, I'm not. Anyways, I don't know what standing we have to suspend a contract. I think we do have a right to potentially send a letter or resolution if the board is so inclined, stating a desire or a position. And so I think that if you're wanting to bring something forward, that there's a process for motions on resolutions, and you have a right as a board member to bring forward resolutions to vote on.
absolutely, yeah. And quite frankly, I understand, Kevin, where you were coming from in various aspects. Section 6.1 in the contract that was shared to the board specifically is in regards to violation to any labor law. And I also think that it is in regards to, or any laws in general, rules, regulations, so on and so forth. And if I think it is prudent that if there is any violation, that we also hold up to our side of ethics and of who we want to work with as far as community partners. So, thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Zach, I have one.
Yeah, go ahead.
It would help me if I had better clarification about the process by which to bring an issue for a possible agenda item. I understand the concept and I agree with that, but I'm a little bit fuzzy on the actual kind of, street level process. So maybe we could have a discussion and just clarify that. Not tonight, but I mean, that's been puzzling me.
Yeah.
So thank you. At a very high level, my understanding is, we're trying to put in this process so that when we do have a work session on a topic, it is we know what we're going to talk about in terms of this forum to request work sessions. So that's sort of ideally sort of best practices. But in terms of Robert's rules, effectively every board member also has the right to bring forward motions and resolutions. And as far as I know, that's basically their prerogative to bring those forward. So having a longer discussion about what the options are and when each should be used, I agree could be valuable. So thanks for that. Julie.
So, I have been thinking about this issue, and sorry, I have a brand new kitten. So I know that's been a little distracting. I think that for the board, it would be within our power to consider a policy that says something like, we are in support of labor. We don't want to do business with organizations who violate labor laws. So we will just like a code of ethics that we have with doing our due diligence for sustainability, we're doing our due diligence for, organizations to make sure that businesses that we're doing business with are keeping with the laws and labor laws. With that said, that's a policy and that just kind of governs everything, right? So we don't get into the business of whether or not someone is in violation of the labor law or not. We find out after the fact that someone has violated labor law, and then we do it. So at the moment, I'm not comfortable. I kind of stand with Kevin a little bit, that I'm not comfortable with supporting a letter from us and a board to an outside agency, even though we do have a contract with them. But that's a contractual conversation that our attorney is double checking on, the president is double checking on to make sure that they're in compliance with the contracts. If they're going to violate a labor law, we'll find out about it. And then they're in violation of their contract with us. So therefore, then we have action. But for us to get involved in the minutia of those kinds of interpretations of those relationships is really, I don't know that that's where we want to be at our board level. But I think it's not inappropriate to have a policy that just simply says, we are in support of labor. We want to make sure everybody does. I mean, that seems to be something we could have a nice conversation about at a policy level. That's what we are supposed to be doing as governing body, is to govern through policy, not through opinions or through actions toward other agencies. So that's just my.
Yeah, and per the email, the attorney actually, one of the recommendations was.
Hey, Austin, I don't need you to clarify everything that I say. I really would request that you don't do that. Thank you.
My apologies. My apologies.
Steve.
Oh, I think I may have waved my hand in a certain direction, but it wasn't indicating a need to.
No, now you had the floor now.
Sorry, I was just kind of going like that.
Okay.
Well, I think everyone's had their questions answered. The last item is around future meeting dates. I did want to raise one issue around the 2025 American Community College Trustee Legislative Summit in Washington, D.C. in December. One of our members that was going to go is no longer going to be going. And so there's now one spot now again. That we have one budgeted for one person to go to DC for that conference. Again, I went for this conference last year. It was a really good experience in terms of meeting people from other trustees from all around the country, getting to meet your legislative delegation and advocate for community colleges, and also just to meet other people from Oregon that we go there with, and a lot of valuable educational presentations as well. Again, I got to go last year. Kevin got to go to the conference in Seattle this year. So we were sort of hoping we would send another trustee. We did have interest from our student trustee, who unfortunately student government does not have the funds to send her, but I would actually ask this board to maybe consider sending our student trustee this year. I think it'd be a very valuable experience, and we only have enough money to send one person, and it didn't sound like anyone else was super interested.
What are the dates?
Zach, could you remind everyone the dates?
I don't have it right in front of me. I believe it's in
12th through the 15th
of December? February 12th through the 15th.
Chair Mulholland, we'd have some late breaking news. We've been talking about this. Since I've come to the college, I've really had an interest in having students engaged in some of the advocacy work that we do. And so Dr. Joyce and I have talked about this. And Dr. Joyce, do you want to talk a little bit about what
I'm going to work with our clubs and Brett also, Carlier and Becca Maley and our student clubs to see if we can't find some funding to help send our SGA president to this event. I think representation is very important.
That's really great. We'd like to have the funding, a sustainable source of funding for students to be engaged in this kind of advocacy work. So we're thinking that we may not want to tap the board's budget on this to allow the board members the opportunity to go, because it really is for board members as well. It's really, ACCT is your organization. So just wanted to share that.
Steve and then Sophie.
Yeah, well, so I think it's great, by the way, if we're able to send students as a college to attend these things. There's probably a lot of great experience in an opportunity there. But also, I would say this is the first I've heard of this opening. I'm not necessarily able to go myself, but I think there's some value in letting board members kind of stew on it for till the next meetings in case folks have change of heart or mind in terms of their openings in their own schedule, so we could get a better feel for board members who are only now hearing about the opportunity. So I'd prefer to hold off a week or till the next meeting before we kind of decide on that.
Sophie?
I just wanted to correct myself. It's the 9th through the 12th.
So the correct dates are February 9th through the 12th.
And the 9th is a Sunday. There is a new trustee advocacy training on that date. That's an add-on if trustees would like to attend that. The actual event is a Monday through Wednesday. Compared to the ACCT Congress, there is much fewer workshops because we do spend about half of the time on Capitol Hill in meetings. So pretty much all day Monday is workshops, speakers, and then we do a half day on Tuesday, head to the Hill, and then go back to the Hill on Wednesday and fly back.
This isn't the one with the big dance party at the end of the.
That was Congress.
Great. Well, we can send out the info again. And again, since I went last year, if there is another board member that would want to go, I want to have others have that same opportunity. It's a very valuable experience. And yeah, so just between now and the next meeting, if folks can think about it, and if others want to go put their hat in the ring, then we can figure that out at the next meeting. Okay. With that, I believe that we are going to be adjourned. We do have an executive session tonight. Are we good to start that in how long? About 10 or 15 minutes? What's a good time to start?
5 is good for me.
10
Let's, I'm hearing 10 minutes, Zach.
Okay. Well, thanks very much. We'll see everyone in 10 minutes for executive